Joining me are former Liberal Minister Nick Minchin and Labor backbencher Michael Danby. Michael, are they right? Is this a contest between who's the biggest snake, and if so, who wins?
The Prime Minister will win because her colleagues don't want the record of this government, our low unemployment, our low debt overseas, to be subsumed by a person who wants to go back to being Prime Minister when his parliamentary colleagues won't support that. It's not an edition of Australian Idol, although I've had some of the e-bombers that have been orchestrated to my office suggesting that they get a right to vote in this like in Australian Idol.
How many people would you have had ring you say, we want Rudd?
Ringing is not the way they're doing it. It's by an orchestrated email campaign. I've had a few thousand, to tell you the truth.
Say, choose Rudd.
Lots of people kicking back, though, pushing back, who think that this is an attempt to sort of subsume democracy in...
But still, it's a sign, isn't it, Michael? I mean, if you're getting thousands, you'd think, what, you'd rather choose death before... dishonour before death, or something, I don't know. What.
It's not death before dishonour, it's being mature about these kind of things. If we get a chance, I know both you and Nick are opposed to the carbon tax, a chance in June to put in the compensation package, you might find that opinion turns very much on how the government is viewed by the public. So
I will get onto the carbon tax at the end, because I think Kevin Rudd has opened that discussion. That's very interesting. But Nick, you've been around in politics for a long time. You've studied political history before then. Have you ever seen a leadership squabble that is so squalid as this one?
Well, for political junkies like me, this is an extraordinary spectacle. But I've got to say, I have never, ever seen in my 35 years of active involvement in politics a governing party tearing itself to pieces like this. I mean, they all seem to hate each other. The viciousness we've seen is something to behold, and I don't see how they'll ever put this back together again, whoever wins on Monday, whether it's Gillard or Rudd. How are they going to put this back together? How are these people going to work together again after what we've seen this week? I mean, the only saving grace is that at least while they're all fighting each other, they're not imposing any new taxes on the Australian people. But it's a small saving grace, because really this is quite embarrassing for all Australians to see their government acting like this. And Tony Abbott is absolutely right. This is a situation brought about by the independents putting this government in power, and it is the independents who should end this farce and bring about an election.
Not going to happen. But I tell you, in a squalid, nasty, vicious brawl, I thought there was one moment, Michael, I don't know whether you agree with me here, that it sort of elevated, if that could be so, and gave you a reason to hope, or a way to perhaps get on together afterwards. And that was when Anthony Albanese spoke extremely movingly yesterday, declaring himself for Kevin Rudd, but without any of the vitriol. Let's just have a look at how moved he was.
I have devoted my life to advancing the cause of Labor. Both Kevin Rudd and Julia Gillard are formidable politicians and good human beings with good hearts.
Was this carpet bombing of Kevin Rudd earlier this week, psychopath, sociopath, all that, was that necessary?
Look, I think some people went in a little hard. If you notice my comments, Bill Shorten's comments, Stephen Smith's comments, we didn't denigrate him. The man has qualities.
Oh, you're suggesting he's a liar.
Well, I'm suggesting that, that there has been a stealthy campaign to undermine the government. I mean, we're all consenting adults here, Andrew. We know it happened. And what does any political party do in these circumstances? We had to bring this to a conclusion. The cone of silence will go down on the Labor Party's internals after Monday. Of course I can work with...
So?
Of course we can work with people like Albanese. I've been reassuring all of my friends who are voting for Rudd that we'll get up on Tuesday and work together. And you guys should be scared, because Mr Abbott has...
I'm a journalist. Why should I be scared?
I mean, I think you've been very strongly against the carbon tax. So's Nick. That's what people really want to have.
People.
They really want it torpedoed before we have a chance to pass the budget in June. This is why there's some kind of hysteria about this whole election, this whole campaign with Mr Rudd. People wanting to get us out of office and get no confidence resolution passed. I hope there's no grubby deal between Mr Wilkie and Abbott over preferences in Denison to make sure that on Monday afternoon that they can get a vote.
That would be illegal.
But we've got a majority on the floor of Parliament. We've got good policies. Australia is doing very well compared to other countries, and I think let's go to an election at the proper time.
We can argue about that. The thing is, Nick, the fundamental instability here is not caused really by Kevin Rudd. It's Julia Gillard's poor performance.
Exactly. As many commentators have said, if Julia Gillard had actually performed well and strongly as Prime Minister, Mr Rudd would not be in a position now to threaten her Prime Ministership. I mean, the Labor Party made this terrible mistake, frankly. I think it goes back to Beazley. They shouldn't have knocked off Beazley. I think he actually probably would have beaten John Howard. But knocking off Rudd as they did without any explanation...
we've had the explanation there.
Well, now we all know why, yeah.
Well, he's putting Julia... explaining it too, and Professor Mendoza too. They're just saying that, you know...
Well, that's true. But Mendoza, do you see, Kevin Rudd's mental health expert says the man's unfit to lead.
He's not fit for office.
Is that a professional opinion?
No, it was an amazing comment to make on the record, and that he'll actually leave the country if the guy gets back into office.
Right, but I'm now going to bowl you up a easy one. The one bit of policy, it's all about vicious personal stuff. The one bit of policy was Kevin Rudd suggesting that we might get, if he's elected, a carbon tax set lower and phased out much quicker in order to diffuse the damage done to the Australian economy. Have a look.
I said I'm committed to an emissions trading scheme and the transition to it as rapidly as possible. I think it's important to look carefully at how the implementation of the current tax goes in its first 6 months.
How did you read that, Nick?
That he recognises that the carbon tax is Julia Gillard's major problem and the government's major problem. That's him confirming what we have been saying, that the people hate this tax, it's bad for Australia, and that he is going to offer to the caucus this slim cover of a way out of this problem without actually abandoning it altogether. But the problem with that solution is that it would destroy the budget. The budget is all based on revenues coming from the fixed price of the permits. So if you allow that price to float down, but you've still got all the expenditure, there is no way you'll get the budget back into surplus.
But that is Kevin Rudd confirming you have a real problem with that carbon tax.
It's not going to happen. The Prime Minister is going to win convincingly, and the carbon tax compensation will go in after the budget and public opinion will turn around.
Look,
I love that wishful thinking.
If we agree that what's helping Kevin Rudd is Julia Gillard's low poll numbers,
which he has helped orchestrate by sort of running the stealth attack against her all the time, with particularly, I'm not criticising you, Andrew, or people outside Canberra, but particularly with the Canberra Press Gallery, who've got a vested interest in running these unsourced stories.
It's not driven by the Canberra Press Gallery. That's just the fiction, I think, Michael. But listen, we've got to go.
Good to see you defending them, anyhow.
Don't you worry. Read tomorrow's Herald Sun. How many votes will Kevin Rudd have to get for his challenge to stay alive for a second go?
I think he'd have to get more than 35.
More than 35? What do you think?
Whatever votes he gets, he'll still be there and he'll still be undermining the government. He's not going to go away. He's going to sit there and he's going to keep being a threat to Julia Gillard. And this is the fundamental problem they have.
He's comparing himself to Keating, but to quote the great US Senator Lloyd Benson about Dan Quayle, we know Paul Keating and he's no Paul Keating.
Michael Danby, Nick Minchin, thank you very much for joining me. Coming up, I talked to